We've done plenty of lists here at GPFans this year, but this is perhaps the most important one of all. The top 10 drivers of 2021. Now, there's always going to be debate and discussion about which way we stack up drivers 1 and 2. No surprises who those two drivers are going to be. So let us know in the comments section below which order you'd have had these top 10 or anybody that we missed out on. But for now, hit the subscribe button down below to stay up to date with all that we do here at GPFans. And dive into now our top 10 drivers of the 2021 season. Number 10, Fernando Alonso. After 2 years away, Alonso returned to great expectations, and he didn't disappoint, particularly in a car that he knew that for the most part would be on the fringes of the top 10 this season. The two-time champion may not have won a race, that accolade went to his teammate Esteban Ocon in Hungary, but Alonso's consistency shone throughout the season. He was strong in attack and stout in defence when he had the car underneath him, delivering solid points and of course that podium in Qatar as well, his first for 7 years in Formula 1. A welcome and fitting success for one of the best drivers in the sport for the last 20 years. Number 9, Valtteri Bottas. Another season in the shadow of Lewis Hamilton for the Finnish driver, and before the first half of the campaign had finished, we were wondering if he was even going to be making the top 10 of this list. But once his future was confirmed and a parting of the ways with Mercedes was agreed upon, moving of course to Alfa Romeo for next year, that long-term stability just seemed to trigger something in Valtteri Bottas, and Mercedes perhaps saw the best of him. With the weight lifted from his shoulders, Bottas started to deliver in qualifying and in Sunday races as well in the second half of the season, perhaps reminding Mercedes why they brought him across from Williams 5 years ago. And of course, he was an integral part of the constructor picking up their 8th consecutive constructors title in a row. Valtteri just about makes it into the top 10 this year. Number 8, Sergio Perez. Ditched by Racing Point towards the end of 2020 to make way for Sebastian Vettel, Perez was rescued by Red Bull in the summer and considered a perfect fit alongside Max Verstappen. Ultimately, the season proved to be a rollercoaster ride for the Mexican driver. There were deep lows as he initially struggled to get to grips really with the car after dealing with a very different style of car with Force India and Racing Point before moving to Red Bull, but he also had the big highs as well. Of course, the victory in Baku early on in the year after Verstappen's tyre blowout and Hamilton's error at the restart, and some solid performance in the latter part of the season as well. And he was a big reason why, of course, Verstappen was able to become the drivers' world champion to finish off the campaign. Perez showed that perhaps if he'd had more time in that Red Bull before the start of the season, the constructors' battle this year could have been very different. But he did, of course, end up being the support man to Verstappen's victory in the Drivers' World Championship, and that sticks him 8th on this list after a very impressive second half of the season. Number 7, George Russell. Another exemplary campaign from Russell, who has deservedly earned his promotion to Mercedes after 3 years learning his craft at the back of the grid with Williams. At least he leaves with relief after he and teammate Nicholas Latifi finally ended Williams' 2-year wait for points, and their 8th and 7th places respectively in the Hungarian Grand Prix were wildly celebrated by the British constructor. The podium in the following race in Belgium was fortuitous given the circumstances, but there was nothing lucky about Russell's Mr. Saturday consistency in clinching a place in Q2 in 18 of the 22 races this year, even reaching Q3 as well on 4 occasions with a car that really struggled whenever it got out on track. Russell gets his big move for next year and certainly makes it into number 7 on our list for 2021. Number 6, Pierre Gasly. For the second successive F1 season, the campaign ends with a major question mark hanging over Pierre Gasly. Why has he not been given another opportunity with Red Bull or snapped up by one of their major rivals? On this occasion, quite simply, the answer is there is nothing available to him. So another season beckons with Red Bull's sister team, with who the Frenchman must again bide his time with in the hope that something materialises by the end of 2022. Gasly is smooth, unruffled, consistent, and has clearly learned the lessons from his ill-fated first half of the season with Red Bull back in 2019. The 25-year-old's strong run of results underlined his improving ability, and so worthily he finds himself almost on the top 5 of this year's list. Alright, let's get into the big boys. Number 5, Charles Leclerc. Another superb season from Leclerc, who again underlined on numerous occasions across the 22 races why he is considered a champion in waiting. Assured, steady, with dashes of spectacular thrown in for good measure, the Ferrari driver excelled in Monaco and Baku, where the Monegasque man qualified on pole on both occasions. For a period just after the summer break, Leclerc was constantly on the fringes of the Mercedes and Red Bull battle and finished in the top 10 in 10 of the last 11 races to help Ferrari wrap up third in the constructors' standings. Number 4, Lando Norris. An impeccable campaign from Norris, who started the season with a new contract with McLaren, with a new platform from which he delivered a string of stellar performances across race weekends. There were more deserved podiums in Imola, Monaco, Austria and Italy, the latter tinged with envy after finishing runner-up to, of course, teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who claimed the team's first victory in 9 years. After threatening Valtteri Bottas for third in the standings for so long, the season sadly petered out in the latter part of the year for Lando Norris, and his McLaren team came under attack, of course, from Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, relegated to 4th. In only his 3rd year in Formula 1, Norris can rightly be proud, though, of what he delivered, including, of course, being so close to that first race win of his career in Russia. Damn you, rain. Number 3, Carlos Sainz. The Spanish driver's decision to switch from an on-the-rise McLaren team to Ferrari was always considered a fascinating decision. In his own words, he couldn't resist the lure of joining the Scuderia, and he did not disappoint. There was an adjustment period, quite naturally, and there were moments of consternation, in particular around the midpoint of the season when he was involved in non-race crashes in Hungary, Zandvoort and Monza. But Sainz has otherwise delivered a sensationally consistent campaign that included 4 podiums and a remarkable 19 top 10 finishes, good enough to see him sit ahead of his more veteran teammate at the Scuderia in Charles Leclerc. And you have to feel that Ferrari must feel good going forward with 2 of the best young drivers on the grid in their stable. Number 2, Lewis Hamilton. Hamstrung by a late winter rule change that affected the aerodynamics of his Mercedes, Hamilton still started the year brilliantly with 3 wins and a second in the first 4 races as he became engaged in that title battle with Max Verstappen. Mercedes then struggled across the middle part of the campaign, and it was only Hamilton's brilliance that kept him in the hunt of the title as he pulled results out of the bag and his team managed to find additional pace in his W12 over the closing stages of the season that resulted in a hat-trick of wins that hauled himself level with Verstappen going into that final Grand Prix. But for a twist of fate and Nicholas Latifi's late crash in the race in Abu Dhabi, then we would be talking about Hamilton as an 8-time world champion. But again, this is where the fine margins come into play in this dazzling motorsport, as he finished second in the standings after finishing second in that race, so he finishes second in our rankings. Number 1, Max Verstappen. You could also argue that Verstappen was by far the most aggressive driver of 2021, particularly when compared to Lewis Hamilton, who was forced to back out of wheel-to-wheel moments that would have almost certainly led to crashes with his lesser rival. But the 24-year-old stood his ground, went toe-to-toe with the 7-time world champion and delivered across the entire year, finishing in the top 2 in 18 of the 22 races, with 3 crashes, 2 perhaps not of his own making, and a tyre blowout, the only instances where he missed out. Verstappen was almost perfect this year, and whether you agree with how the season finished in Abu Dhabi, perhaps you can at least say that Verstappen across the season was the best driver in Formula 1. As I say, I knew there's going to be controversy with which way we were going to stack numbers 1 and 2, so let us know in the comments section your thoughts on all of our rankings in the top 10, any drivers that perhaps missed out who should be included, and of course hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with everything we do here at GP Fans, and have a very happy new year.